Wonderful. So our opening poll is, how familiar are you with citizen science? Are you very familiar? Have you participated in citizen science before? Have you heard of it, but maybe haven't participated yet? Or are you not familiar with it? We'll wait a few more minutes until folks join us. Welcome from Michigan, from Illinois, Arizona, Ohio, Georgia. Welcome, everyone. We'll get this Palooza started. Let's see our poll today. I'm going to share the results. Okay, so we have a spread. Some folks are very familiar with citizen science. Wonderful. Most folks know of it, but have never participated. And there are some folks that are not familiar with it. So this is going to be a little bit for everyone today. We have additional resources and webinars and all kinds of things to help you get even more familiar with citizen science. Today, we're focused on pollinators. And this is in celebration of Citizen Science Month, which is funded by the National Libraries of Medicine. So thank you very much to everyone participating. So who are we? We are the National Citizen and Community Science Library Network. My name is Tara. I work at the National Girls Collaborative Project and work with SciStarter to help direct this library network, which is really comprised of libraries across the country that are hoping to become community hubs of citizen science. So if you have not signed up for the library network, Robin, if you don't mind popping that link in the chat for folks to sign up, we encourage you to sign up for our newsletter and just to hear about various projects. This network is supported by SciStarter, which you'll learn more about today, and Arizona State University. I'm also joined by Robin Salthouse, our library specialist, who is going to be telling you about some wonderful resources today. So just quickly, what do these four animals have in common? What do you think? Put your ideas in the chat. They all have wings, maybe. Okay. Oh, maybe the title of our webinar gave it away a little bit today. They're all pollinators. And so we're here to talk about lots of different kinds of pollinators and the types of programming that you can start at your library around pollination, around pollinators, and citizen science. So what is citizen science? For those who may not be familiar with it, citizen science is this global movement that enables people from all walks of life to participate in real scientific research in collaboration with scientists. It's a way that people are making a difference on issues that are, sorry, I'm admitting people into the room as well, on issues that are important to them. So citizen science projects range from everything that includes accelerating Alzheimer's research to counting pollinators, to measuring light pollution. It is across as wide and diverse as the scientific field, and there are tons of projects that you can participate in. Robin, just so you know, you're direct messaging me the links. They're not going to everybody in the chat, just FYI.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. So at SciStarter, if you haven't ever visited SciStarter, this is a website that, and it really, it's your hub for citizen science. There are more than 3,000 citizen science projects on SciStarter for you to search from and participate in. There are very hyper-local projects. You can search by your location. You can search by the type of science that you might be interested in. You can search by the type of audiences that you may want to reach. There are projects that are really great for youth. There are projects that are great for some of your affinity groups at your library. So we encourage you to sign up for SciStarter, to make an account and search for those projects, and also encourage your library users to make a SciStarter account. What are the benefits of citizen science and society? So firstly, it really empowers communities. It broadens the scope of who can participate in science. It challenges the idea that science has to happen in a lab, and it brings communities together around issues that they care about. Secondly, it increases science literacy in the community. It enables people to learn about the nature of science, to practice scientific techniques like collecting data, analyzing data, interpreting data. And lastly, it is about accelerating science and enhancing scientific research. It increases the diversity and the scope of the data that's being collected, puts more eyes and ears in the field that scientists need. And sometimes there's too much data that scientists have, and they need help analyzing that data. Citizen science enables investigations that would not be possible without the power of public participation. That's what we're celebrating this month. And today's webinar is all about pollinators and how citizen science and pollinators really overlap. We're not going to go any further really into what is citizen science, but we have these two really great training tutorials if you haven't taken them. They're online, they're self-guided, and the first is for anybody, your library users, yourselves, your library staff, to get familiar with the foundations of citizen science. And then the second training is specifically for libraries on how to become community hub for citizen science. All right, I'm going to pass it to Robin to introduce our guest speaker today.
Thank you, Tara. So the next slide, please. Today, we're really fortunate to have Dr. Kahit Ozturk from the Phoenix, Arizona area. As you can see from his CV, he's got extensive background in bees. And I know him personally from helping me educate my community before I retired from Arizona about the importance of bees. And we really appreciate his presence today because it's getting warm in Arizona in the valley, and that means the hives are coming along and are coming alive. So I'm going to let Dr. Ozturk provide his presentation. And just an FYI, we encourage you to ask questions, but he will have to leave the program early due to his research work that's happening as we speak. Dr. Ozturk?
Thanks so much, Robin. Thanks so much, Tara. And it's my privilege to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. As you introduce my name, like I'm working for Arizona State University almost 10 years. But Arizona State University has more history than my work here. Almost ASU has been working with honeybees almost 20 years, almost 2 decades. So my role here, being a lab manager, we have a great lab here, and my background related with honeybee breeding management, honeybee behaviors, in vitro bee rearing, and I am trying to help design projects focus on honeybee learning behavior with our master PhD students, and we have collaborated with other institutions and universities. Next slide, please. So this is our physical location. ASU has multiple campuses. One of the east location we call Poly Campus, and it is in Mesa. So our physical address here, we are a little bit outside of the campus area. As you can understand, we have some highs, and they didn't want to establish our bee lab middle of the campus area, but this is great location for bees and other pollinators because still a little bit quite wild. There is not big structures. They start to make a structure as you see the pictures behind the scene. Some structures start to seen around bee lab. So our bees really happy in this location, and also we have some hummingbird, carpenter bees, leafcutter bees. We are trying to keep them here. And another good news, like recently we recognized as a bee campus for US. So this means we are caring pollinators, and we are trying to preserve them. We are trying to keep save them. Honeybees and other pollinators. This is a recent development for us. Thanks so much. And please, next slide. So we have really a good research team here. So we have social insect research group. Our university and our department really focus for social insects, so their behavior. Like we don't look for like agriculture perspective. We are not aiming breeding and increasing honey crop or like pollen crop or developing new lines, new subspecies, hybrid bees. Instead of this, we are trying to understand better social insects behavior, especially honeybees, and we are trying to make some scientific data for human researchers, because most of the time human body is really complex, but some insects, like some social insects, is really good example for our life and our experiments. So if we use our bees as a model, we can get some estimate for our life, like human life. So it is easy, and it is also well-known pollinator, because honeybees represent maybe 20,000 pollinators or bees, and we have been intensively worked in decades on honeybees behaviors, and we have lots of information on honeybees. It is easy to maintain, and because of their importance on pollination, so we want to use bees as a model, because they have social structure, sociality. It doesn't matter small animal, it doesn't matter complex animal, it is similar, but we need to work on the simple, complex, simple structure first. After then, we can come up with some ideas for human researchers, like mice, like lab mice. So we focus on behavior, and we have almost 10 faculty members. They have different specialties, some of them immunology, some of them behavior, some of them learning. And we are just trying to understand their behavior well, and we can get some idea for other animals. Next slide, please. So we have really good environment for this kind of experiment. We established a polycampus, and as I mentioned, we have really a luxury environment for bees, because I don't know if you have had any experience in living in Arizona, Phoenix area. Summer times it is really hot, over 100 degrees, sometimes 110, 120, even we can pass this threshold. And honeybee is not really well over the 100 degrees. They can survive, they can still produce honey, but they need some shade, they need some water. If there is water, if there is shade, they really well. So we provide them this condition. We have around 100 honeybee colonies, and we provide them shade. Even as you see on the picture, maybe it's not well seen, but missing system, missing water on the top of the hives. And we try to provide maybe 15-20 degree cooler condition to work with them as a beekeeper. And also if they are happy, healthy, we can conduct our experiments long-term and easily. So we have flight cages, we have pollination garden to keep other pollinators, and we have native trees, native plants to support like pollen, nectar source, because they need to eat something. We cannot provide all their needs, and they need to forage around the apiary. Next slide, please. And also inside the bee lab facility, it is really great environment also. So we have some portable and like stable observation hives we use as a display, and also some research activities. So as you see, this is our multi-purpose room. Recently, we applied a fund, and we got a 10K grant. So we start to use high technology cameras, and we are monitoring this observation hive 24 hours. We are recording 10 minutes recordings, and international students can participate this online bee class, and they can monitor bees, honeybees, and they can conduct some experiment. This is basic model, but hopefully we can apply big funds, and we can improve this technique. We can make more stations for international beekeepers or people. And also we use this lab, different rooms. We have some labs, small labs, wet labs, and small stations. We are conducting some experiment in our lab, And also we give public lots of beekeeping class, basic through advanced classes. So either anyone can interest to start beekeeping, they can participate our courses and they can learn beekeeping, how to keep bees. Even if they are beekeeper, they can learn some advanced technique and they can improve their beekeeping and they can increase their profit with these techniques. Next slide, please. Is it last one? Yep. Okay, so I didn't want to take much time, but hopefully I summarized a little bit. And please ask your question if you have any question. And we are open for collaboration. We are working sometimes with the international other universities and institutions, either from US, either from American continent, either from Europe sometimes. And we give lots of outreach event at schools and libraries. So if you need any idea, if you have any idea, if you need any help, don't hesitate to reach us. As long as we have time, we would like to help you. We would like to increase awareness of the bees and we would like to support honeybees. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Öztürk. And on that note for availability, I know from our working together in the past, the winter months or cooler months are the best time for you to do your outreach. Is that correct?
Yes, most of the time that's true because summertime it is difficult to prepare some observation hive and take them outreach event locations. So I prefer wintertime, and also another reason for this, I'm really busy summertime and I don't have enough time to do this kind of activities, but I am a little bit more flexible wintertime, like fall, early spring and winter, I can do happily without any issue.
Okay, great. That's always something important to understand when you are working with subject specialists, is to understand, the demands on their schedule. Sherry just asked a question. Do you work with any community gardens?
Yes, we work at Desert Botanical Garden, and they provided some plants for us for our pollination garden. And I invited different community garden owners or like representative to give idea. And still I'm working, we are developing, it is new. It's not like a really established structure. I need some help for like wild animals. And I am trying to improve our pollination garden, beautify our pollination garden, but we are communicating with the gardens.
That's wonderful. And I have one question. You mentioned carpenter bees, which are, considered a local wild bee. And if I'm not mistaken, Arizona has over 100 wild or different species of bees. So it's important, as you mentioned, to protect them as well as honeybees.
Yes, that's correct. And we have some experiments we conducted in the past, one of our PhD students. So I knew them, but after our student completed her PhD, I took some of the logs and I brought here to Bee Lab. So right now I'm trying to give more nest space and I'm protecting from the birds, some birds eating their cocoons, but when they fly around, I'm feeling so happy. I see hummingbirds, I'm feeding them. I see leafcutter bees. I tried mason bees, but they need year-round some nectar pollen sources. So why I started pollination garden, because I tried it a couple of times. They couldn't stay here because after spring it is dry a little bit. And I'm trying to make more year-round pollination garden to keep mason bees. My favorite one also mason bees. Hopefully we can keep more native bees.
Great. And one last question, and then we want to give you your time back. Christine's wondering, do honeybees outcompete native bees?
There is not evidence for this. Lots of time I have heard from different people, and even sometimes there are pictures. They utilize same source with the honeybees, but if they have their population grow much, if there is not enough food for all of them, then maybe it is possible technically, but there is not evidence for this. They just try to utilize. We have plenty of source for them around, so there's not any proof of this.
I have one last question. If
Sure.
you could give advice to libraries as to some talking points about why protecting our pollinators is important, what are some key things that our librarians should be promoting?
So yeah, we can find from different source something, but we can summarize, like, if you want to support bees, there are a few ways, like we can contribute, we can advocate for people. One of them, trying to use less chemicals, because one of the big reason why we are losing chemicals and they are harming by human, we are applying every year more chemical insecticides. Even like I have scorpions, sometimes I did this, but right now I don't use chemical. I'm trying to kill or protect my house different way. So if we advocate this, like using less chemical, at least around our community, it is best. And also we don't lie, we turn intolerance of the weeds as a community. So we need to keep more weeds, we need to plant more flowers, because their main food source is pollen and nectar, and they need variation of the pollen source. So if we plant more pollination friendly plants year round, we can support them. If we use less chemical, or if you don't use any chemical, we can harm less, we can save them. And another way, if you have like environment, you can keep bees, and you can support the local farmer markets, and you can local administration if they're supporting pollinators. So that is like for these 3-4 title, we can summarize everything.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit and think about some pollinator-focused citizen science projects. So these are projects designed by scientists to help study pollinators in your community and really provide that data back to us to be able to measure the health of your pollinators. So here are some great examples that there are many, but these are some that we've seen work really well. The first is the Great Sunflower Project. Really super simple citizen science project that encourages people to go outside, go to gardens, and measure how many pollinators they see in a particular time period, and then input that data back into the pollinator, the Great Sunflower Project website. This project really helps us identify where pollinators are declining and how we can help improve their habitats. The second project, which many of you may be familiar with, is the iNaturalist project. This is another very simple project that uses this app, the iNaturalist app, to explore and share observations of the natural world. How many of you, raise your hands virtually if you've used the Pollinator app before? Sorry, the iNaturalist app before. I'm curious. Okay, a few people have. This is something that you can download on your library's tablets, and encourage folks to even go right around outside the library and to look at the biodiversity, the flora and the local flora and the fauna. There's also, Mary says iNaturalist is great. There's also BioBlitz events, which is about getting people together at one time and doing like kind of a mass observation together and inputting all this data together. The last project is called Zombie Watch. So this is another really interesting project that really looks for and helps to trap bees into, you can see down there, there's a kind of a homemade trap, and it looks for if the bees are infected with a fungus that turns them into zombie flies. And it really is an invasive fungus that is not good for the community. So you can track where these zombie flies are happening all around the country. As you see, there's a map of all the places that zombie flies have been identified or they're sampling in process. And this is another great one. You can have an event where folks can come build these zombie catchers and talk about this invasive infection that's happening in in our in the bees. So those are just 3 project ideas, but now we're going to talk about some programming ideas that you can do to support these various projects. As I said, you can go on SciStarter and look up pollinator projects that are maybe even local to your community, but there's these types of events that that you can use for any of these citizen science projects. So Robin's going to talk through some of those with you.
Thanks, Tara. So we'll go to the first slide. And as you just saw, you can bring in a subject matter expert. And again, you want to do this with plenty of time, because as you just found out, people involved in beekeeping probably won't have the time as the temperature warms up and their lives are buzzing. Also, we have a opportunity on SciStarter. The People Finder allows you to reach out to project specialists or project leaders who actually are doing research in your area. So through the People Finder, see if you can find somebody who would be willing to come in and talk about their project, or projects in general that benefit from citizen science. That we've also provided you with the FabFems link, where you can find female STEM specialists who also may be willing to help you explain citizen science and different STEM opportunities in your community. And one place I've had great luck is through my state university extension office. And in Arizona, it was the University of Arizona. And then almost every county has an extension office, and then they'll have a master gardener program. So they'll help you connect through your county those people that can maybe come in and do specific gardening programs. The American Beekeeping Federation also has a state directory, which may help you connect to local beekeepers who would come in and work with you. One thing, unfortunately, we didn't see in our presentation today from our subject specialist was all the wonderful props he brought to a program several years ago before I retired. He brought beekeeping equipment and that closed hive you saw in that lab. So it really enriched people's understanding of the whole industry of beekeeping. This is having an event with a subject specialist. It's also a perfect time to introduce the kits you may be circulating. You can explain the process and how to get a kit. Maybe even quickly go over the protocols for that specific research project. And it's always important to reduce the barriers to your community. So if you know technology is an issue, make sure you explain, hey, we've got public computers that you can log into to create your necessary accounts to participate in citizen science, or to upload your data from observations you've made for these projects. Some of you have even provided smart devices and hotspots so people can go out in the field with these to do their research, or certainly from home input their data. Next slide, please. Many of you already offer seed catalogs. That would be a great opportunity to provide a citizen science program. Here's 2 examples of seed catalogs. I think they're pretty elaborate, but one is a slat wall an Australian library uses to distribute their seeds. And Mesa, Arizona Public Library has a beautiful card catalog, what we saw back in the old days when we did use card catalogs instead of the online systems we use now. When I was at my library in Arizona, we just had a box we'd pull out and tell people, come to the front desk and we'll get you the seeds we have available. And again, this is a perfect way to use master gardeners from your county extension office to help educate people the best time to plant seeds, how to take care of them, maybe share ideas of best practices for having successful gardening. And again, think about offering seeds that attract pollinators. Your local nursery may be a great resource for understanding that. If not, there's online seed suppliers that many times offer specific seeds for regional areas. And then another opportunity to highlight your collection to get those gardening and plant books out to help people gain a deeper understanding of this topic. Next slide, please. We always talk about book discussions. Again, pollinators offer a great theme to do a story time from, toddlers all the way through adults, or use the books as a way to have a meetup theme. I know some libraries do citizen science meetups, so where they either discuss the book or share ideas to better their understanding of maybe a specific citizen science issue. There's this great native pollinator series for younger children. They feature a specific pollinator in each 30-something page. For older kids, there's a book called The Beekeepers. And then for teens and adults, sometimes you can find books like Our Native Bees that talk about an issue related to pollinators. Or you can, again, share ideas that you find in a specific book, such as the Pollinator Victory Garden. And I don't know if many of you realize, but in the Victorian times, a whole language around flowers was developed. So people were putting together bouquets based on a flower type or a color to send a message like love or desire to the receiver of that bouquet. What a fun way to keep the whole interest in flowers and pollinators in front of your library customers. People who may not have even felt they cared about pollinators, maybe a book discussion would really pique their interest in becoming more involved or understanding why pollinators, who provide the opportunity for successful food production for at least 30% of crops in our country, or around the world. Next slide, please. And then we've made it really easy for you to host a pollinator project. You're going to have access to the Observing Pollinator slide deck and speaker notes. Right now, it's under our training section in our Citizen Science Month website. You can download this slide deck as a PowerPoint and the speaker notes as a Word document and edit them as needed. This particular deck does center around the Great Sunflower Project, but certainly use it as a model if you decide to take on a different pollinator project. And again, it's a great time to encourage your community and staff to complete the Foundations of Citizen Science online course. And it provides another opportunity for you to highlight the kits that you're circulating and encourage participation in a citizen science research project. This is also a time that you may want to reduce barriers to your community. Do you have tech-savvy teen or adult library volunteers? See if they can be available during a program like this, either before and or afterwards, to help people upload necessary apps like iNaturalist to their smart device. Maybe they'll need help creating an account either in SciStarter or a specific research project. And it's a great way to track your participation too, if you create some of these accounts to connect them to SciStarter and your SciStarter account. And again, just have those pollinator plant ID books ready and at hand for people to use and start becoming more familiar with the plants and animals that make pollination possible. Next slide. And then, as we've mentioned before, use our Build a Kit guides, and we've provided that website for you where you'll find everything necessary to put a kit together. And again, we suggest things, but sometimes because of supply chain issues, you may have to substitute. So all the kits we're showing you do not require the items we suggest. They're only suggestions. And you can make substitutions. This is also where you're going to find the free downloads for the accompanying bookmarks, rack cards, and flyers to promote these kits. Exploring biodiversity, you may actually want to have a accompanying pack that lets you do a group project where you have multiple sets of binoculars and little count sheets and clipboards so you can go out with a group of people. I'm going to be working with a Boys and Girls Club here up in Washington in August. And I'm going to be working with 70 kids, not all at once. So I've got to round up some volunteers and these materials so these kids can learn how to observe and input that data for the Great Sunflower Project. Okay, next slide. Yep, we're all done.
Actually,
thank you. Back to you.
Thanks. I was going to say that's actually a great segue into this next section, which thinks a little bit about multi-week STEM programming for family around pollinators. So you can obviously host some one-off events and build the kits and maybe even do some passive programming, like creating a book display about pollinators. But I wanted to think a little bit about multi-week STEM programming. As many of you are hosting STEM events, how can we do one around pollinators? And I thought of some really good resources to share with you today. So this is our programming framework. We encourage you to set the stage before you jump into the data collection with children and families. Set the stage by reading a story or sharing a video and taking a nature walk together. Then engaging in some STEM learning to practice some of those skills that we talked about when it comes to citizen science, and then taking action and participating in one of the many citizen science projects that focuses on pollinators. So we're going to go through each of these stages in a little more detail. So setting the stage is really there to help answer the question, what do you know about pollinators and why do we care about pollinators, right? The setting the stage part of your program could be the first day or the first couple of days. This part is meant to build curiosity, to tap into prior knowledge, to make pollinators relevant to your audience. We talked a lot about bees today, but there are a lot of different kinds of pollinators. Bats, for example, are one of them. I included one of my favorite childhood books there, Stella Luna, which is about a fruit bat. Butterflies are pollinators. Another Lois Eckert classic, Waiting for Wings. And then another one called What If There Were No Bees, right? Thinking about not just what are pollinators, but why does it matter? Really building that buy-in. We also have some turnkey worksheets that are on our website that you can use to download as some of the first kind of programming ideas. If you do a series, let's say a 4-part series, the first part is all about why do pollinators matter and what are pollinators? What do you know about them, right? Tapping into folks' prior knowledge. The second is taking it one step further and really engaging in some STEM learning. What makes a good plant for pollinators? That can be your kind of driving question for this second day or, in this series of programming. An activity that I love doing is dissecting a plant, right? We all have seen a classic plant worksheet there, which is fine, but when you actually get hands-on, you're starting to practice those close observation skills. Put out some science tools like a magnifying glass and have folks dissect plants and label them and create their own diagram of plant parts. What makes a good pollinator could be the color or what makes a good pollinating plant could be the color or the smell of a plant. once you've identified what plants pollinators are attracted to, having folks create a seed garden here. That's another hands-on activity, identifying and labeling seeds. And I want to show you one website where you can find a ton of amazing STEM activities. I know Pinterest is a go-to for many people, but thinking a little bit more about some vetted STEM activities that encourage experimentation, encourage critical thinking, practicing those STEM skills, and taking it one step further than crafting. So I want to share that website right now because it is just such a wonderful website. It is my go-to website for looking at looking up STEM activities. It is called howtosmile.org. I don't know if anybody has ever used this before, but you can just type in pollinators. And let's see what comes up. There are hundreds of pollinator activities on howtosmile.org, and you can search by age range, by learning time, by the materials cost. This one is one of my favorites, design a flower. So once you kind of think about what makes a good pollinating plant, have kids design their own pollinating flower. Flower engineers, which is all about kind of deconstructing, building a, here's one that's about building a pollinator home for bees. You can go on here and really look up so many different amazing STEM activities that center around pollinators. I'm curious if anyone has any other examples of activities they've done in their library that focus on those STEM skills and thinking about and learning about pollinators. Please type them in the chat. And then lastly, it's about taking action. As Robin mentioned, one of the projects that we like to focus on is the Observing Pollinators project, the Great Sunflower Project, because anyone can participate in this project. Children, I think it's ages, is it 13 or 14, Robin? I always second guess myself. They must.
13.
13. Okay, so you have to be 13 in order to have an account on SciStarter. However, anyone can use the Observing Pollinator sheets there and collect the data, and then somebody can, maybe the library has an account and inputs all of the data from the youth that are there, or parents, caregivers have the account. So really super simple materials for this project. And there are some additional things too, like bee identification cards, maybe some seeds that you can give out at the end so that folks can continue to plant their gardens, right? It's not just taking action when it comes to collecting the data for the Citizen Science Project, but also, as Dr. Ozturk said, taking action in your community as well. So Sherry said, make a bee with pipe cleaners using colored sand and dip their legs in pollen. That's it. That's fun. So maybe it's like a game to see how much pollen you can transfer between, in 30 seconds. So think about those activities that really do build those critical thinking skills that they will then need when participating in the actual citizen science data collection, right? Citizen science is not your average STEM programming. You're actually contributing data to scientists. So we want to make sure that we are building those skills, those scientific skills, the process of science, observation, analysis, experimentation, as well as doing some fun STEM programming as well. Any questions about this website? The other one that I wanted to mention as well is the STEM Activities Clearinghouse that StarNet hosts. And that is another great place for vetted activities when it comes to STEM. Love that, Mary. Bee waggle dance. I love that. So you can do some introductory fun things at the very beginning and then moving more towards those higher order activities when as you think about your programming schedule.
Yeah, and Mary, actually, that Ask a Biologist is an Arizona State University website as well.
That makes me think of another really fun activity I did, an echolocation activity where kids had to close their eyes and you just use the, the power of sound and thinking about how to find, it's like a fun kind of almost like a tag type game, but it's another great introductory one that really gets them curious and excited to learn. Absolutely. So Robin, do you want to tell us about Pollinator Week?
Yeah, it's an annual event. Pollinator.org is kind of the website for it. So either use this time as a way to highlight your collection or your kits from June 19th through the 24th. Pollinator.org does offer a lot of ideas and items. One year I bought one of their beautiful posters and did use it as the backdrop for my display. So yeah, and with summer reading coming, you could do an event again during that week to celebrate Pollinator Week with some of the ideas we mentioned. Just a reminder, during our last webinar in February, preparing for Citizen Science Month, a librarian who at one point worked for Sholo, Arizona, Lisa Lewis, the branch manager, had a great program where she did a bunch of family events and even provided a light dinner. So she removed some childcare barriers and some getting dinner on the table barriers to get those families involved. So just another idea that you can look at. It's a recorded webinar if you want specifics on evening of pollinator activities. Tara, did you want to talk about adding and promoting events?
Oh, I thought you were going to just take us out.
All right. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So at SciStarter, we have an event database. Oops. Oh gosh. I'm clicking links instead of, there we go. Sorry. We have an event database that anybody can add events to help promote your citizen science events. And it really helps us measure the collective impact of citizen science across the country. And again, I just want to remind you to also sign up for the Library Network newsletter, because that is another place where we can collectively contribute and knowledge together. We have a Facebook group where you can add your events to, as well as talk to other librarians that are interested in becoming community hubs for citizen science and sharing your ideas there. And then Robin, you wanted to have some takeaway messages?
Yeah. Again, we just in summary want to let you know and ask you to think about your community and introduce who, what, and where of citizen science. If you don't explain citizen science to them first, they may just walk by displays or bookmarks. Sometimes you need that face-to-face interaction to get the message through. But of course, you've seen we've got lots of free resources for you to download or to point your community to take care of this learning about citizen science. You saw today, I hope you all benefited from our special guest, Dr. Ozturk, who talked about bees and his research. Hopefully gave you a deeper understanding of why bees are important and why people are researching them. Offer events that support the citizen science projects you're supporting within your community, and hopefully have kits to circulate and help people with the directions and tools that are necessary to complete those projects, and remove barriers that prevent your community from participating, whether it's technology or just doing something with the kids. Make it a family event if your budget allows, or you have somebody that'll help you with a light meal. Include a meal, and then again have those tools like the kits available to help do these projects. And as we saw from Tara, you can stretch this out through multiple weeks. This may be a great idea to get you going through or get you through your summer reading program. And use our free turnkey events to promote these events and get them out in the community. If you just put up a poster and don't do anything else with it, the likelihood of this catching on may not be that successful. But getting up in front of your community, letting the newspapers, your own newsletter, shout out that you're a hub for citizen science can really make a difference. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then finally, we're going to ask you today to actually do some citizen science, and that is to complete the survey that you see in this link. By answering this survey, you're helping us do research, how we can improve, and if we've communicated to you the best way possible about ways to get citizen science out in your community. And if you complete the survey and include your email address, you're automatically going to be entered to win a chance at the Field Guide to Citizen Science book. And if you don't have it in your collection and you can add it, your prize book, that would be great. Or maybe it'll give you a chance to have a personal copy of yourself. This book in itself is a great addition to collections. It's a great resource for promoting citizen science. Use it as a book discussion title. So, you know, we really would like to see you enter to win by completing this survey.
Put it right in the chat. Any questions? We have some time. Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask questions that way if you'd like. You know, this was a lot of information. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, and we'll have some other resources in the follow-up email. Just take them as you can. As Tara said, this is somewhat overwhelming, but boy, I'll tell you, as a gardener myself, I'm really learning a lot. The Great Sunflower Project has some great educational resources. You can take an inventory, you know, is your garden good? They address the issues Dr. Ozturk did about, you know, are you using chemicals? Maybe you could do this instead. I know we're trying really hard on our property not to worry about chemicals. We're not going to have a perfect lawn. In fact, I'm trying to switch over to clover for ground cover rather than grass. So, you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do to make a more pollinator friendly space.
Thank you, everyone. We look forward to hearing about your programs this summer. Please share back with us. Thanks, everyone. If there are no other questions, I'll close this out. Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Yep.